Apa khabar everyone? Welcome back to Asian Insider, where we go across the causeway and explore Malaysia's current affairs and trends. And as always, I'm joined by Straits Times Malaysia Bureau Chief Shannon Teoh. And boy, do we have some good news for you. Shannon, you want to do the honors for our listeners?
Sure, yeah. Yes, due to popular demand, I suppose, this will now be a monthly show instead of once every 2 months. So you won't have to wait until October for the next installment. There'll be another episode coming in September. So this is good news for all our loyal listeners. But it's bad news for those who are already sick of me and the few friends that I have to arm twist to be guests on this show, which brings us to our returning guest for today.
Yeah, we are flattered by the I guess demand from our listeners that they cannot seem to get enough of us. Yeah, and we are welcome with our returning guest, someone who just doesn't hold back on his opinions about Pakatan Harapan or PH, the ruling coalition led by Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim. Please welcome Dr Ong Kian Ming. He was formerly a deputy minister in the PH administration and Bagi MP, and is currently an adjunct professor at Taylor's University in Malaysia. Kian Ming, terima kasih banyak lah because spending some time to join us today.
Yeah, hi guys. Will you all increase the frequency to like bi-monthly closer to the general elections in Malaysia?
Ayo. How Shannon can you can do like a weekly show.
Oh, I don't mind, but then who's gonna write the story? So we have to choose. I only have so much time on my hands.
Too much of a good thing is also probably a bad thing.
I think there'll be ample stories after Parliament is dissolved.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's always stories in Malaysia. I don't think our listeners have to worry about that. Now, before we dive in, Kian Ming, you've been quite a busy man lately. You dishing out some pretty spicy predictions for us at the Straits Times about the fortunes of PH. So, why is it like these days? Like watching from the sidelines as an academic, but at the same time still quite plugged in into the party's grapevine?
Yeah, I think because I wear different hats these days, not just as a academic, but also as a political pundit and a podcaster, and apparently sometimes a fortune teller, as said by a certain Malaysian minister. So I try to test the various mathematical and election prediction models that I have by making those prognostications before the state elections in Johor and Negeri Sembilan. Yeah, and
See, Shannon, this is why it's a bit hard for us to run a weekly show because we have competition for people like Kian Ming, and it seems like a trend with all the politicians in Malaysia.
Yeah, everyone's got a podcast now. But that's where I suppose there is this market, right, of people who read the news or some who want to listen to the news, and the same thing, people who want to read the analysis and some people who want to listen to the analysis.
Yeah.
I suppose traffic jams in Malaysia are not a problem that's going away soon. So podcasts work, right, for people who are driving.
Shannon, a lot of people tell me they listen to my podcast or KG's podcast while they go exercise, run like a 10K, exercise. So, we are promoting.
Doesn't it make them angry while they're exercising? Maybe it makes them run faster.
No, it gives you like a motivation to,
It keeps them engaged. And then, when I take them behind the curtain, they'll be like, oh, that's actually what politics is like behind the scenes.
Yeah. Well, there's certainly plenty for us to dig into today. I mean, like we just had two of the most consequential party assemblies in recent Malaysian political memory, if you can say so. Like there's of course DAP's National Congress, which was held in Putrajaya, and PKR in Malacca. I mean, they both wrapped up in August 16, so there was like around 2 weekends ago from when we are recording this. And since we have Kian Ming here, we'll be talking about, of course, the big question hanging over the AP, where, I mean, Kian Ming, you're still a member, right, in the AP? You're not sacked
for now,
yet,
I'm
by
still a
Tony
member.
Puah? For now?
Yeah, I haven't been sacked yet. Nobody has given me
ominous statement.
nobody has given me a notice to go and appear before the disciplinary council that's headed by Tony Puah. So we'll wait and see. Yeah.
And then, of course, we'll turn to Anwar himself, always a perennial topic in our podcast. And just to remind our listeners, this is all happening while we wait for the Malacca state government to be dissolved. And hooray, Shannon gets to cover yet another state election.
Ooh, yeah.
And I get to make another prediction.
You make another prediction, yes, Kian Ming.
Yes.
Okay, jom, let's get into it. Let's start in Putrajaya, where DAP held its National Congress. So, after a string of drubbings, if you can say that, in Sabah, Johor, and Negeri Sembilan, DAP decided to let its members decide on its future in the government. And the result wasn't even close. I mean, like almost 9 in 10 delegates who stayed on to vote actually voted for DAP to stay in the in the cabinet. So, but then again, only around half of the 4,000 plus of those who were eligible actually bothered to attend the referendum. So, Kian Ming, you had actually called for the opposite before the vote happened. I mean, you actually told us that DAP should leave PH and quote unquote spend time in the opposition to rebuild itself as a multiracial party. Okay, now that the delegates have voted overwhelmingly to stay, I mean, like, do you think that was a wrong call by the party?
Yeah, so firstly, I already anticipated that most of the delegates would vote for the DAP to stay in government. My baseline was about 70%. The actual results turned out to be about 88%. And I think it's a combination of factors, legitimate reasons for not wanting to abandon Pakatan Harapan during what could argue one of the lowest points in its administrative history in PH 2.0 government. And at the same time, also considerations about the future after GE16 with regards to having the alliance of Pakatan Harapan remain strong so that they can retain possibly the state governments of Selangor as well as Penang. So there was a lot of, I think, self-interest and some legitimate, some maybe less so. But I still stand by my call because of a couple of reasons. Firstly, you can see that after the decision by the DAP delegates, I think the DAP leaders have been very strident coming out to ask Anwar to introduce certain reforms before the end of the year. My sense is that because of the limited time, because of the budget session, and also because, frankly speaking, DAP has given Anwar a blank check by saying that we are with you, and Anwar looks at things in terms of actions, not words. So the action is that they will continue to support Anwar until the parliament dissolves. So Anwar basically, I think, will not feel that much of a pressure coming from DAP, but will in fact try to prioritize other things. Maybe just one last point. The reason why I say DAP should go back to being opposition is that I think the writing is on the wall for Pakatan Harapan. If the cooperation between PN and BN continues, it is very likely that they will form the next federal government after the 16th general election together with parties and coalitions from Sabah and Sarawak. And then I think DAP will be forced to relook at their position within Pakatan Harapan and within the opposition and how they want to basically re-strategize moving forward after the 16th general election.
Yeah, so Shannon, the Bureau was on the ground reporting this. I mean, shout out to correspondents Lu Wei Hong and Harith Mustafa. So there was clearly some dissent in the hall. For example, Sanjit Kaudio accused Anwar of, quote-unquote, pitting allies against each other by empowering UMNO. Is this sentiment you think is shared by others in the grassroots? I mean, like, is the mood among them, the grassroots, different from what the party leadership is telling the public?
I think you're right to an extent. It's not so black and white, right? I mean, in the political sphere, people will try to use the results of the referendum in a very black and white way, right? That critics will say DAP voted to stay, they don't have the guts to leave, and as Kian Ming said, show Anwar, with actions. But then from within Pakatan Harapan, we always talk about Setia Kawan and loyalty and all that, So, but I think it's a bit more nuanced. Even though the vote was to stay, it doesn't mean that DAP is happy with Anwar, and quite the opposite. They are very upset. I mean, those who are following the Congress beyond just the headlines and the stories that will appear after that, will know that when Sangit, who is the chairman, Gobin's sister, said that Anwar should relinquish the finance portfolio. Then he just be prime minister, don't also be finance minister. There was wide applause. There's a lot of applause. But when the Penang delegate spoke about, don't blame Anwar for the troubles that we're in, it was complete crickets in the hall. People didn't agree with that sentiment. Anwar is at least partly to blame, right? So when
Okay.
you listen to the speeches and the debate going on, you can actually sense that the grassroots, the delegates, were unhappy. But we have to think then, if they were unhappy, so why did they not leave, right? So here's the thing, that previous state election that just happened before this was in Negeri Sembilan, and the Secretary General, which is for DAP, I think similar with PAP in Singapore, who is the chief of the party, Anthony Loke lost his state seat in Negeri Sembilan called Chennai. And I think there is a sense here within DAP also that they are afraid that, if DAP were to leave, eventually end up without the support of other Pakatan Harapan partners, a lot of their leaders that they feel are good people, that they actually are loyal to within the party, might lose even in parliament for next general election, right? So I also think that just before the referendum was held, I mean, many in the CE were saying that we should stay, right? So this became more than just a referendum about staying or leaving Anwar's cabinet. I think you recall many years ago when they had a referendum on Brexit, the Prime Minister of the UK, David Cameron, at that time also, put up this referendum, but he said that we should stay. I'm so confident we should stay, I put it up for a referendum. But when the country, the nation decided to leave, his position became untenable. He had to resign as Prime Minister. So in the same way, I think this referendum also was a vote of confidence in Anthony Loke. Now, I think the sense here is that DAPs are saying that whatever it is, we don't want Loke to leave as Secretary General. So this, in a way, is a vote which on the stated vote is about the referendum on whether to stay in Anwar's cabinet. But I think also the secondary thing people are thinking about is that if we do vote to leave, I think Anthony Loke would have to resign as Secretary General.
Yeah, it seems to be like a choice, right? I mean, do you want people to good people to stay in cabinet, or do you want someone that wants change, right? So, but realistically though, is there any scenario where DAP could actually walk out before the next general election, given how this referendum has played out? Or is there even any chance, for example, DAP will go solo in the election? It seems like the trend these days, isn't it? Like for Bersatu and Perikatan Nasional, for example.
Yeah, a couple of comments. I think member of the DAP Exco Ram Kapal Singh did say that voting to stay is not a blank check to Anwar, and that the DAP can revisit its decision if certain decisions are made or not made. For him, he pointed to the possible pardon for Najib Tun Razak as a red line for the DAP. I don't think that will be coming before the next general election. But Gobind Singh, the chairman of the DAP, did come out with a list of 4 reforms that he wanted the PM to put on the table for a vote, including the separation of the public prosecutor and the attorney general, the 10-year term limit for the prime minister, and also equal allocation for MPs regardless of whether they are in government or in opposition. And the ask by Gobind, representing the DAP, was that these reforms have to be put in place before the end of the year. Basically meaning you have to have it through the budget session that's going to start in October and end of November for the lower house, the Dewan Rakyat. So my sense is that these are threats that have been issued by the DAP, but I do not think the DAP would dare to walk out if those reforms are not promised and implemented before the end of the year, for reasons that I talked about just now, that there's just too much at stake for the DAP leaders from a personal as well as from a party perspective.
Yeah, Shannon, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think that you're right in the sense that the story is not over today, right? I mean, there is still all these demands that DAP leaders are making. So I would say there's a non-zero chance of DAP not being part of Pakatan Harapan by the time general election rolls around. So the loyalty to, and this whole sense of Setia Kawan in Pakatan Harapan, from DAP side, I think it's a bit grudging, right? And I think if you speak to DAP delegates, they'll say on the one hand, Anwar hasn't done this, so on and so forth. But on the other hand, what are our options here? So they're stuck between a rock and a hard place, right? I mean, for reasons maybe too long to discuss in this podcast, DAP has become a kind of toxic brand to Malay voters, right? And the only Malay-led parties that seem to be willing to ally them is PKR and Amanah lah. So
Yeah.
when your DAP, those are your choices, right? DAP and Amanah, or completely going on your own. And we've seen what has happened to parties that have gone on their own in recent state elections, right? Bersatu, Bersama, they were losing their deposits, not even getting 10% of the vote and things like that. So it is a kind of two-way relationship. We talk often about how PKR and Amanah, they need DAP to get the non-Malay votes to win in this kind of mixed constituencies. But also DAP does need some Malay votes in many other constituencies. I think Kian Ming, your former constituency, Bangi, is one where actually the largest proportion of voters, 48%, I think, is Malay.
52% Malay.
So DAP would have
52% Malay.
So they will still need. They've won the. You guys have won the seat yourself. Your successor have won the seat handsomely. It shows that there are Malay votes that come to DAP as well. So I'm not suggesting here that DAP must stay. If not, you'll be a forgotten party or whatever it is. I mean, you can leave. And I think as Kian Ming has mentioned to us in some of our analysis, is that they can leave, lose some seats, but I don't think DAP will drop below 20. I think maybe low 20s is the about something realistic if they were to go on their own. And that's still about 10% of parliament. That's significant.
Yeah.
That's
Not too bad.
sizable. That's
Yep.
nearly GPS, which governs Sarawak. You
Yeah.
talk about them being so powerful, but they got 20 something seats as well. And then maybe having spent this time in government, learning how it's quite difficult actually to govern, to be a constructive opposition, and realize that to make policies happen, there's some give and take. And Kian Ming helped to do this in 2021, to craft a confidence and supply agreement with the then government led by UMNO,
Yeah.
to get certain reforms done. So there's more than, I think the short of it is there's more than one way to skin a cat. If you want to get certain reforms, certain policies done, you don't always just have to be in our government or cabinet to get it done, right? So as a sizable force in parliament, you can still advocate and even make agreements for certain policies.
Yeah. So the next question is just to keep it short, Kian Ming. I mean, do you think that's the ideal situation for DAP? Like in the confidence and supply agreement with either Anwar or the Pakatan Harapan, but at the same time remaining, critical in order to get some reforms done?
I think we've crossed that path already. I don't think a CSA is possible at this point in time, especially since DAP is in the government. But I
Okay.
would say that could be something that the DAP would want to negotiate if it is find itself back in opposition, as is likely to be.
Okay.
Maybe just one additional point. Just now Shannon talked about DAP working with PKR and Amanah having no choice but to work with DAP. I think another interesting development which we may see happen within the next few weeks is the possibility of Bersatu rejoining Pakatan Harapan. I think there have been signals put out there. It'll be interesting for me to see how DAP reacts to that because of the very violent reaction that it has had towards Bersatu leaders, including Tan Sri Muhyiddin as well as Azmin Ali for spearheading the Sheraton move that led to the downfall of Pakatan Harapan 1.0. But, in Malaysia,
I think it would be interesting. Yeah, it would be interesting to even see the reaction within PKR, because so many people in PKR were calling their former colleagues who left to join Bersatu traitors at that time as well. And some were actually people who were loyal to Azmin and then decided to stay within PKR to even then suffer through that kind of purgatory, as you were, and then see Azmin come back in. It would be a very strange sort of reunion.
Yeah, I mean, like we talk about Malay parties, right? I mean, like is Bersama Malay enough? Maybe we can see an alliance between DAP, Bersama, and Muda. Maybe we'll see how it goes in the next general election. But for now, DAP is staying put. But they in no way mean things are stable within PH and the unity government, as Shannon has written in his analysis. So if anything, Anwar finds himself squeezed from every direction. And of course, he's being squeezed by the opposition in Perikatan, but also from allies in Barisan, from Pakatan itself, and even from parties in East Malaysia. So because BN has already ended its electoral pact with PH, right? And we are seeing them openly flirting with forcing an early general election. The polls itself must be held before February 28, but we are already hearing a real talk that they could come very soon. I'm like, to our listeners, you should definitely check out our last episode with Dr. Francis Hutchison from ICS Yusof Ishaq, so you can listen to our prediction on when the general election may happen. Yet, despite all this pressure and squeezing aside, Anwar is still keeping UMNO President Zaid Hamidi as his closest pal. Now, Kian Ming, I mean, you've also floated another pretty dramatic idea, right? That Anwar should openly declare that he won't be the one to lead PH into the 16th general election, so the coalition can rebuild without him. I mean, like, if you ask some loyalists, this feels sacrilegious, right? I mean, but why don't you walk us through a bit why you think that is necessary rather than just, letting him serve out his term and then continue as a PH chairman?
Sure. I think if you look at the elections in Johor and Negeri, what was clear to me was that Anwar's own power to shape the narrative to attract voters, whether it's Malay or non-Malay voters, was not strong. And you could argue that he probably scored some goals for the Barisan Nasional and also PN when he campaigned in Johor, saying certain things against the Menteri Besar that I think were not well received from the electorate. And after learning from that, he tamped down his campaign activities in Negeri. But that also wasn't very useful because then, basically DAP just retreated to its shell to protect its own non-Malay majority seats. And PKR was basically wiped out in the Malay seats, including Amanah as well. So with that in mind, and let's talk about real politics. If let's say that is the situation, especially if we see PH getting destroyed in Malacca, and then maybe after that, Sarawak, PH maybe leaving itself like almost like a Sabah with 0 seats, then the writing is on the wall. So rather than go into the next general election trying to campaign to form or to be part of government, it's to lead government. It's better for PH to say, look, we know the odds are stacked against us. Why don't you vote for us to be an effective opposition, and we will rebuild from there. And ask Anwar either not to contest or to declare that he won't fight for the prime minister position. And if that's the case, then I think the anger that the electorate may feel towards Anwar because of the lack of reforms that he has, not delivered so far, that anger may subside just a little bit, enough for PH to maybe hold on to 30 to 40 seats and still be an effective opposition. So don't fool yourself that you can, lead government. Maybe there's a small chance that if you get 40 seats, there's a chance that you can be part of government. You can be invited into government, but definitely
To
not.
still be part of the conversation,
Yes,
yeah.
correct. So don't fight for the main position. That is to your own electoral strategy and advantage.
Yeah, that would definitely be a bold move, especially for people who have been in the government, right? I'm like, there's no way you can ask them to work to be the opposition instead. And even then, like, if even if Anwar steps down, I mean, like, there will be probably another episode of our podcast, right, Shannon? Like, who takes over, right? Yeah. Because
Next month. That's the one for next month, yeah.
yeah, that's your teaser, perhaps. But your analysis, right, pretty much say that all this animosity towards Anwar is pretty much self-inflicted. I mean, like, we've talked before about issues such as pig farming in Selangor and the UEC exam for Chinese schools. I mean, like, to those from the outside, I mean, like, it must seem baffling. Why does Anwar keep making these concessions to Malay Muslim voters and royal sentiment when the data and the numbers, I mean, like, it's not showing that it's winning him new votes? I mean, not only that, I mean, like, he is basically, you would argue that he is alienating the base that got him into power in the first place. Yeah. So, Shannon?
Man, I wish I knew what Anwar was thinking. I mean, unfortunately, I don't quite have tea with him every week. To me, it's
You should.
the wrong. It's the wrong. I'll try my best. It's the wrong move. And in my opinion pieces, I do keep advocating for Anwar to respect the mandate that he was given by PH supporters, right? And fulfill whatever is the electoral pledges, right? Whether they were explicit or implicit pledges, right? And you are given a 5-year term to actually fulfill that, right? And stop making excuses like, oh, the elite don't even think about the masses when they ask for reforms. Or we whether that because we are unity government we can't fulfill all these sort of things. I think for PH supporters these are just excuses, right? And how is it that PH won the largest vote share, and then you say that reforms are elite thing and not for the masses? Most voters voted for your platform, right? Um, and if I want to spin things now, I would say, the prime minister has now agreed with me. And that's why in his in the PKR Congress, he said that he will now start getting serious on reforms
Yeah,
and
yeah.
corruption and things like that. So maybe he's been reading the Straits Times. But more realistically, is perhaps that uh, I think he has advisors who keep telling, and every prime minister has this. Advisors who keep
Mm.
telling them that things are okay, you're doing good, boss. Don't worry, and we will turn the corner, and so on and so forth. Because at the same time, for whatever reason, surveys from Merdeka Center show that he still has high approval ratings,
Mm, 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 mm.
right? So maybe he's lulled into some false sense of security. But bottom line is not the surveys. The bottom line are the votes, and PH is not getting the votes. So what's the point of all these good surveys, right? And I was discussing with some of the people at the PKR Congress, which we covered. Um, the the party, right, and the coalition that it leads, whether it was called Pakatan Rakyat before or Pakatan Harapan now. If
Mhm.
you go back all the way 2 decades since Anwar was first released from jail, 2006, I think, it always seems like it's going to crash and burn. They have bad results, just like we are seeing now. And then suddenly at the general election, totally different ballgame. They were losing by elections, looking like, what is this bunch of parties? They are no hopers. Then in
Mhm.
2008, boom, wins 5 states. 2013 wins the popular vote. 2018 wins power despite PAS leaving them in 2015. And all this is up coming after like very bad periods.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
general election, something happens.
yeah.
So 2022 also, same thing. They lost Malacca and Johor by huge margins. Then Anwar suddenly becomes prime minister. So maybe he knows something that, well, I won't say that we don't lah. I don't lah. Maybe Ong Kian Ming knows better. But maybe he believes in some kind of manifest destiny, right? That
Yeah,
Anwar Ibrahim
yeah.
is supposed to be prime minister and it will happen. So
Yeah, yeah.
whatever it is, I wouldn't totally write off Anwar from a second term yet. What is the strategy to get there? I don't know. It could even be that the strategy is to say that, oh, don't worry, we'll rebuild ourselves as a good parliament and suddenly win 80 seats or 90 seats again. So bottom line is things look bad, but they've looked bad before. So
Yeah, a couple of responses to that, Zurairi. Firstly, to explain to your listeners, I think they have to understand a fundamental fact, which is Anwar Ibrahim is not strategic in his actions or his thinking. He is tactical. What is the difference? Strategy means you have a grand plan that you would try to
Mm.
execute using policies and people that you put
Okay,
in place. A tactician
okay.
basically responds to the latest political event or the whatever that's in the
Ah,
political calendar that's coming down the road,
okay
right?
lah.
So
So long term versus short term lah.
exactly, yes, exactly. So, but even if you have even if let's say if let's say you have a good strategy, you can be short term as long as those short term movements and activities and initiatives correspond to your larger long term strategic objectives. Anwar doesn't have that long term strategic foresight. So that's why he has all these tactics like trying to release the RCI report on Tabung Haji just before the Negeri Sembilan
Mm, mm, mm,
elections, which
mm,
didn't help at all.
That came out
Now
of
he's going
nowhere.
after Felda. People are saying that there could be some sort of a list that's floating out there of UMNO leaders that he wants to arrest or charge. So yeah, I mean that's
Mm.
one thing that I think your audience needs to understand. The other thing is that following on to what Shannon said just now. Yes, I was I saw how PH bounced back in 2008, 13, and 18 despite some setbacks along the way. But I think one also has to remember that PH has benefited from this wind that has blown during the general elections, mainly from the non-Malay voters helping PH, right? And then some Malay voters in 2018. but that situation is very different. If we had a general election in the next 6 months and the wind is blowing, it would be against PH, both on the part of non-Malay voters, but also on the part of the Malay voters, because unlike in the past 3 election cycles, you have the Malay voters united behind the two biggest Malay parties, namely UMNO and PAS. You did not have that in 2008. You did not have that in 2013 or 2018. It was either
Yeah.
Malay
Yeah.
party situation, and in 2008, PAS sort of like in the end worked with Pakatan Harapan in an electoral pact, right? So I think the situation in the next general election will be very different, and definitely PH will suffer the brunt of any wind that will blow at the national level.
Well, I do hope Anwar's advisors are listening to this podcast. um, on the off chance that they are actually listening, Kian Ming, what would you tell Anwar's advisors?
I would tell them that you should do things in the short term for the good of the country, including having a responsible budget, not a populist one that will break the bank. That's one. And then second thing is, I will
Okay.
ask them to maybe post more on LinkedIn so that they can do more professional networking in order to procure a job after the next general election. And I'm saying that in good faith. I'm not trying to be snide or sarcastic. I really mean it. I think it's something that they need to prepare for.
So you really think the government can be responsive on LinkedIn, or at least agents of the government?
Oh no, I'm saying that they should post on LinkedIn for their own benefit so that they can look for jobs themselves
Okay.
Or personal,
in a
or
personal capacity.
to future proof their careers. Yeah.
Yeah, something like
Okay,
that.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
government relations or in a think tank or going back to academia for some of them. It's just thinking on their behalf.
Okay,
So
okay,
basically,
okay.
to do what you did, lah,
Yes,
right?
correct. Yes,
You've gone down the career
but
path as well. Yeah, yeah.
do it. Yes, do what I did, especially the part on leaving a responsible legacy. Because for me, my legacy was the confidence to supply agreement. I was a pillory for it together with Tony Pua. But I think that the country did benefit in terms of having a anti-hopping party law
Yes.
at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Shannon, is that why you are not more active in LinkedIn? Because you are
Oh,
quite
because
secure.
no matter who wins the next general election, in fact, the more political chaos there is in Malaysia, the more secure I am in my job. So maybe I'm the one causing all the political instability just for my own personal benefit. Yeah.
Um, okay, just the last question. While we are on this topic, right? I mean, Kian Ming, earlier you said they may, I mean, Bersatu may even come into the Pakatan picture soon. So, is the alliance going to be something like realistic given the bad blood, or I mean, like, is it just a case of Pakatan simply being out of good options?
I
Kian
think
Ming?
both PH and Bersatu are out of good options. PH does not
Okay,
does
okay,
not have
okay.
any I think pathway in terms of trying to win more of the Malay vote. And then Bersatu is on its own floundering, trying to keep its deposits. So I think in that situation, the enemy of your enemy is my friend. And in this case, I think it does make political sense for PH and Bersatu to get together. But like what Shannon said just now, the reaction from within, whether it's from PKR or from DAP towards Bersatu leaders that have betrayed them in the past, I think would be something that a hurdle that they will have to cross from a narrative perspective and also from an internal party governance perspective.
Shannon, you have any comment on that?
Well, I think that if you put aside the personalities and the grudges they might have and all that, I think an informal arrangement is possible and probably the best strategy. Which by that I mean not for Bersatu to re-enter Pakatan Harapan as they were part of before 2018, right? So you look at Barisan and Perikatan, it's not formal either, right? They just have but it's still a quite structured arrangement to be able to have an electoral pact where they don't overlap. That's considered quite structured. I think things with Bersatu can even be less structured than that. There can be some overlap some places, but I think you don't want, if you were PH as well and you think that what's the advantage here that I can get from Bersatu joining is that Bersatu still has in certain pockets around the country still goodwill with Malay voters. And what you want is not for this entire avalanche of Malay voters to go with this BNPN electoral pact, right? and because of the way, we discussed a bit just now, and again, too long to go into this toxicity that DAP especially, but PH in general has with Malay voters. You don't want bersatu inside that, and then if not, you will fall victim to this whole thing. Oh, bersatu is also now being used by anti-Islamic forces, blah blah, so on and so forth. So leave them outside. Let bersatu contest where they can contest. You to contest where you can, and then maybe in certain seats you realize that, look, if we contest against each other, we'll both lose. So let's sort out in those seats. And then I think that this is not a new strategy, right? This is what Najib hoped PAS would do in 2018. When PAS, he would pass out of Pakatan Rakyat at that time, so that they could pull Malay support away from from Najib's main opponents, right? In Pakatan. So wouldn't be new, and in tactically this would help, in fact, PKR more than anyone else, right? Which, because they contest in mixed seats, and if you move a few percentage of Malay voters away from Barisan and Perikatan, then you get a better chance of winning in those seats. I think for most DAP seats, they have more less Malay dominated, so where the Malay vote goes in those seats maybe don't matter so much. So this would possibly be a strategy that I think can be beneficial to both sides. But again, as we come back to it, politics is about a lot of sentiment, and we don't know whether the sentiment in Pakatan is amenable to something like this.
Yeah, okay. So I guess we will see how DAP and PKR steer their future. Finally,
And
we
will
are...
ensure I will have a job for another 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so finally, we had our final session. I guess a more lighthearted one. Thanks to our listeners for sticking until to this point. So this is what we call a news nugget, where we discuss a more, I don't know, lighthearted, offbeat kind of thing. So I'm not sure if both of you are fans of Formula One, but F1 is coming back to Malaysia and Sepang for the first time since 2017. I mean, I didn't realize it was actually quite that long, but it's coming back under some pretty unusual circumstances. I'm like, it's in Malaysia, but it's still called Bahrain GP. So, but just in Malaysia. So what? Bahrain GP in Malaysia, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it would be a very, very interesting pop trivia question of a couple years down the road. Okay, so part of it is because Malaysia used to spend around 300 million ringgit a year. That's around what, $100 million Sing dollars, to host its own F1 race before scrapping it in 2017, because, well, I guess crowds aren't just showing up anymore. But well, we might not get this specific GP in Sepang to stay for good. Which is weird to me, because I'm like, tickets are already sold out. Perhaps because we have the 200 ringgit Madani cheaper tickets, right? But it's got me thinking. I'm like, if you could pick just one major sporting event to be hosted in Malaysia, what would it be and why? Shannon, you can start first.
Okay. So I don't know if any of our listeners know me well enough to know. They probably don't. That I grew up playing and loving football. Because I used to write about football once in a while. But now that as I get older and the joints can't take too much of football anymore, I used to play 2-3 times a week. So now I've transitioned to get my body stronger and hopefully continue playing football. So which means that a lot of time spent in the gym, especially in the weight room. So, and suddenly this has become something that I've enjoyed more and more. So I would probably describe myself now as an average powerlifter and a very mediocre CrossFitter. So a younger me, right, would have said, oh, some kind of football thing. If you want to bring some event, bring, World Cup, something, whatever like that, to Malaysia. But you remember, you talk about 2017, I think that was the year we hosted the World Youth Cup for football as well, right?
Is it the Coca-Cola thing? Was it decades
it was
ago?
sponsored by Coca-Cola, so it was Coca-Cola World Youth Cup, right? And it was under can't remember what age group. And it was hosted in Malaysia, and it was a lot of fun. But we got nowhere. We lost all our games. So maybe it's not so fun when you are the host country and you just get trashed by everyone lah.
Yep.
On the other hand, so there's a guy who trains at the same box. Box is the term in CrossFit lah. They won't say gym, it's box. Very big
box.
So that there's a guy and he's from Sabah.
Okay. Okay.
Trivia, a little bit of trivia. He's the son of a former national football player,
Okay.
Yap
Okay.
Wailun, right?
Okay.
And he is now Malaysia's top CrossFit athlete. I'm nowhere near as good as him, right? I'm not fit to tie his shoelaces. But he went to Thailand last year for one of these CrossFit challenges, and he was
Mm-hmm.
the best placed Asian.
Oh
So
wow.
only
Okay.
much bigger white guys beat him. And he also just came back from Singapore. In fact, there was something called the Turf Games, and his team placed first.
Okay.
And in this year's kind of global CrossFit Games, he also got into the semi-finals lah. I know that might not mean anything, but basically it means it's top 100 in Asia, top
Yeah
300
lah,
in the world
power
or something.
lah. Okay, not bad lah. Okay.
So there's quite a big following for things. So we already have high rocks in Malaysia.
Yeah, yeah, man.
So it's already all the rage. But
Yeah.
CrossFit is actually has a longer history.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think maybe coming up to 2 decades. And every year, plenty of Malaysians they sign up remotely for this thing, the CrossFit Games lah, where my friend Mika, he plays first. So we can't host the CrossFit Games here. It's something that happens, at a continental level. But we can have a local Malaysian competition. In
You mean
Singapore, they
there's
had
not
that.
one yet in
There's not one
Malaysia?
which has at the
Okay.
level. So that if you look, if you have time, listeners, you go look up the Turf Games. Giving them some free publicity here, and there were competitors coming all the way regionally to come and compete in Singapore. We don't have a competition in Malaysia where people come regionally to come and compete.
Okay.
And so that would be exciting to see. So it would be like high rocks, but not so much running, a lot more strength involved. And maybe I might even join and try not to finish last in the kind of masters above 45 category or something.
Hey, you can be the organizer, like. Kian Ming, how about you?
Okay, I'm gonna mix it up a little bit. I think if let's say Shannon wanted to have something football related, in the interest of the spirit of ASEAN and looking at what happened recently in Canada, Mexico, and US, I would advocate for a Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia hosting of the World Cup football, right? And that will defray the costs a
Okay.
little bit as well. That's more Shannon's thing, not my thing. For me personally, I think there are two sports that I am passionate about, which I would like to see, increase its stature in Malaysia. The first one would be no surprise to Shannon. This is the World Athletics competition. I think was hosted in Tokyo last year, if I'm not mistaken, and then next year it will be hosted in Beijing. So it's once every 2 years. I would like to see Malaysia host that so that they can bring in world-class athletes to Malaysia and give us that kind of exposure that that would really lift up the sport. For the interest of your listeners, there's a quite famous Singapore marathoner called Sori Yong. He's a friend of mine, and I invited him to come to Malaysia to run in a recent, competition called Score Marathon. And he's the consultant to the
Score. Yep.
BYD Singapore Marathon as well. And I'll be running the half marathon at the end of the year. So, it will be a good chance for this kind of athletes to come to Malaysia to showcase their talents, to do promotion, marketing activities and whatnot. If that can't take place because it's too expensive and too many moving parts, very, very big tournament, I would say hosting the World Chess Championship. I'm not sure whether you would consider that a sport, but I'm not sure whether you guys remember, 2 World Chess Championships ago when there was a Chinese player by the name of Ding Liren versus an Indian player by the name of Gukesh Domaraju. Do you know where they played the World Chess Championship? This was, I think, 2 years.
I can't
It
remember.
was
Yeah.
none other than Marina Bay Sands in Singapore. Right?
Well,
So, it's much.
Well, people are allowed to bet on the outcome.
I not officially, but yeah, a couple of my friends went, and I think they had a lot of chess influencers go down to Singapore. Magnus Carlsen, the most famous chess player in the world, together with Fabiano Caruana, that's one of the top US chess players, they went and played an exhibition game on a yacht. Took out a very high class yacht, not the Jolo one. And then they took it out and then played a game, exhibition games, with some high net worth clients. So I think if we can bring that to Malaysia, that will also be good for the chess scene in Malaysia as well.
You know what I want in Malaysia? It's not even sports, maybe, and it's probably not even big. If you've heard of it, it's the Red Bull Float Tuck.
Red Bull Float
Are you
Tuck.
aware of
Okay,
that?
I've seen
Yeah.
on Instagram before. Yeah.
So for those who are not familiar with it, it's like I wouldn't even call it a race. It's probably a competition where you build your own. It's not flying machine perhaps, and then you go down the slope, and then you see
Yes,
how far
correct. You try to stay
your
you try to
homemade.
stay on
okay.
on
Yeah.
the thing as long as possible, and then if you don't, you fall into the water.
I would. Yeah, I would love to see that in, I don't know, Putrajaya Lakes or maybe.
Yeah, that would be fun.
And there's another one by Red Bull as well. It's called Soapbox Derby. Same concept. You build your own race car, and then you go downhill
Just go
and see if
downhill,
you
right?
survive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm a sucker for this. I think they've done it in Singapore or Hong Kong before, but I've never managed to catch it. So
We will.
yeah.
I think we will do surprisingly well in Malaysia. Thanks to all the Mat Lajak fellas, right? It's
Yeah,
basically
man,
the same thing,
yeah.
right? So
Yeah, DIY stuff. Yeah, we're pretty good at that.
Yeah, we are very MacGyver like that. Okay, what a conversation. Thanks. Terima kasih banyak both of you, Kian Ming, Shannon, for joining us, and of course for being so, I guess, refreshingly candid about where you guys think PH needs to go. So once again, thanks, Shannon and Kian Ming.
All right, see you, and all
Thanks
the
for
best.
Thank you very
And hope that
much.
you can increase it to once a week during the general elections. Yeah.
Then you will have to come every month. So that I don't know if you want.
He's coming to Singapore in December.
Yeah.
So
Go
we
for
book
it,
him
go
early
for
lah. Go into the.
Okay, you can be,
All right.
Okay.
you can join from the studio for December. Okay, we've booked him already.
This has been Asian Insider, and I'm Zurairi A.R. If you want more of our coverage on Malaysian politics, do check out our show notes. Also, sign up for our Asian Insider Malaysia edition newsletter, lovingly written by Shannon and edited by me every Thursday. So to make sense of the big stories coming out of Malaysia. And if you enjoyed this episode, please do share it with your friend who needs to catch up on all things Malaysia. There's going to always be stories, and we are always happy to discuss them. This episode was produced by the always wonderful Faiza Sani. Thank you as always, Faiza. And as we head towards Hari Merdeka on August 31st, here's wishing all our Malaysian listeners a happy National Day in advance. And probably good to think about how merdeka are we really, like all these years later. And of course, happy National Day to our Singaporean listeners too. Enjoy the rest of your Bulan Kebangsaan, and we'll see you next time on Asian Insider.